call the meeting to order. Let the record reflect all board members are present. Recognition of visitors and guests. We welcome all the guests here this evening. 1.3 will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I haven't had any requests for public participation this evening. 1.42, recognition of students, staff, and community. We have a recognition to the Worthington girls gymnastic team in capturing the Big South Conference and being named Section 3A champions 10 years in a row, along with the team advancing to state. And the following individual gymnasts qualified for individual state competition. Haley Bullerman, all around. Addison Gerber, all around. Kennedy Thiner, floor. Jordis Weber, beam. And Brooklyn Dykstra, floors and bars. And also the gymnastics team also earned the Section 3A Academic Award for gymnasts with a combined GPA of 3.97. So I'd like to congratulate the gymnast team. Great job. Okay, moving on to the agendas, approval of agendas.
I move approval of the consent and main agenda.
Second.
Motion by Lori, second by Matt. Approves consent and main agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 3.0, approval of minutes.
I move for the approval of the minutes of the January school board meeting and the committee meetings.
A motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Adam to approve the minutes. 3.1 and 3.2. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent agenda, items on the consent agenda.
I move approval of the items under the consent agenda.
Okay, motion by Lori,
Second.
second by Aaron to approve the items under the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.0 main agenda, 5.1 monthly financial overview for Dave.
You should have the revenues and expenditures report for the end of January. This reflects the budget amendment from the past. And right now, we're just over 50% of our revenue having been collected, which is a little higher than this time last year. And our expenditures are just over, or just under 48%, which is a little bit less than last year as well. There's been nothing unusual or extraordinary in the last month, so.
Okay,
Anybody has any questions?
any questions for Dave?
Chair?
Steve?
Yes, under the debt redemption, we show income coming in at 3.2 million or so, and we show that the expenditure is going out of 448,000. When does that expenditure catch up with the revenue part of it?
I believe that generally goes out in March, I think, if I remember right.
All right.
The big payment.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, moving on, 5.2, approve capital outlay requests.
So the Operations Committee reviewed the capital outlay requests. If you look at or reviewed it, in the capital outlay, we receive about $900,000 in funding. And through our normal process of whittling it down and looking at things, we're at $871,000 in expenditures. Long-term facility maintenance, it's $1.3 million. Current funds available, and based on this, we would be expending 1.5 million plus. And then other funding, there was in technology 149,000, and the expenditure side, that's really a lot of our E-rate funding. So just so you know, it covers that. So, and the Operations Committee was recommending approval.
Okay, any questions?
I make a motion to approve the capital outlay request.
Second
Motion
that.
by Adam,
Second.
second by Steve to approve the capital outlay requests as presented. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, a question on the, maybe that is, all right, I answered my own question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
No question? Okay.
No.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.3, approve the 24-25 NCIC budget.
So the NCIC budget, total revenue is $1,236,014. There is the initial revenue of just slightly under 2 million, and then the incentive revenue is 37,000, which brings that dollar to that amount. We're one of 6 school districts that are part of the NCIC. We all will be approving this budget this month. Each have their own separate budget to approve. And so based on that, the Operations Committee is recommending approval.
I'd make a motion that we approve the integration collaborative budget.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Steve, second by Lori to approve the 24-25 NCIC budget as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.4, approved to declare surplus property.
Dave, do you want to?
I believe we have some books.
Maybe Josh can.
Yeah, I wasn't at that meeting.
Course, they've just kind of run their course. So we're not sure that anyone's going to be interested in buying them, but we need to declare them surplus because they're not really usable for us anymore.
Okay. Any more questions? Books are available if anybody wants them. Okay, I need a motion.
I approve or make a motion to declare the mythology books surplus property.
Okay, motion by Lori,
Second.
second by Aaron. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.5, discussion on student school board representative.
So, short history, the board at one point started out with one school board representative, student representative. We went to 2 and tried to create alternating a junior and then a senior, so it kind of kept going. Since that point in time, however, it worked out, the junior dropped off, and now we've been without a school board student rep for probably, oh goodness, it's got to be at least 3 years, or pretty close to it. Anyway, it was brought back up. The instructional committee had a conversation about it and wanted to have a full board conversation about if you want to try and restart the program based on student interest.
Okay, what's the board's feeling?
Is there somebody out there with student interest to be on the?
Right now, we don't know that if there's a student or not that's interested until we put applications out. And how it when we put applications out, those students that were interested would make an application, and typically one or two board members, along with the high school principal, would do an interview of those students that were interested. Mr. Noble was the principal at the time that we had student representatives, so.
Well, I certainly would like to see a student representative on the school board. We approved it, what, it was probably 6, 7, 8 years ago now. And then I think there was an interest for 1 year, and that's kind of how we got out of the cycle of having one. So I think it should be put out there to see if we have student interest again for this kind of a position on the school board.
Sure.
Steve?
I agree. I think it was a good program for us to have representation. It's nice to hear if they have concerns and their viewpoint on those concerns. I also like the idea of having two. I like the idea of having one for a junior and one for and then go over into as a senior to have some continuity and have, by having two and stuff, if one can't make it, hopefully the other one could. And at that point, I'm not sure how long the application interview process would be. If we move forward with this, which I hope we do, I think it'd be good to have two of them. I think it'd be good to start out with maybe one appointed for, find someone for next year that's a junior, and then maybe from there work into, they become a senior, and then put another person on the following year. And if we put somebody as a senior on at this point, by the time we get it done, the school year's just going to be about over with, and I don't know how much interest they may or may not have in participating that close to their graduation. So I would suggest we move ahead with it, and I also suggest we look at somebody coming in to be a junior next year, and then we add the second person the following year, adding another junior, someone going to be a junior. And I'll make that a motion.
I would be willing to go to advisories or homerooms of sophomores and juniors this spring if we need to try and drum up some interest, talking about what it's like to be on the school board or what the opportunity entails. I'd be willing to do that. And I think to Steve's point, if we can start pushing it in the spring and maybe even have kids apply towards the end of the school year, they could get some sort of onboarding over the summertime, or at least hit the ground running once the school year starts in the fall.
Second the motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any more discussion?
Chairman, is there a possibility of a little compensation for each one of these students for sitting at the table? Well, they're getting the experience of sitting at the table.
I do believe there's scholarship opportunities for student school board members, but I don't know that it's an automatic. I think once they're on it, they have an opportunity to investigate. How competitive that is, or all have an opportunity, but I do know if they're a student school board rep.
I just thought maybe if they had a little incentive for an hour or two, and then, I'm not talking a lot of money, I mean, $20, $30 a meeting or something for that hour, they might give them a little more interest in being actually an active board member on the board.
Sure.
Dave?
When this first got started, we did have that conversation, and at that time, the board elected not to do that. We felt students are involved in a lot of different things. This is an opportunity for them to gain experience. We don't pay other students for doing things within the school district, participating in committees and things like this. We just didn't want to start that precedent of starting to compensate students for activities and opportunities that they have available to them. So we did discuss that earlier and decided not to do it. I think for that reason, I don't think we'd want to be compensating one group of students or a couple of students for doing something, and others, we don't compensate them for other activities that they do within the district itself. So I don't know if we really want to get into a precedent of doing that. We do it for one, we're probably going to have a lot of others that feel they also deserve some compensation if we're going to be paying them for doing something that they volunteered to do. We're not forcing anybody to do it or making them do it. So I would say probably not the best idea to compensate them.
Okay, it's a good thought, but maybe not quite adequate, quite in order at this time, maybe for past practice and so on. Any further discussion? We have a motion to proceed with getting a nominee or right?
We have motion and second.
Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And that will go to the principal.
Yeah.
Okay, 5.6, discussion on intermediate school principal positions.
So based on where we're at, Dr. Clark resigned she's doing has another position, so she will not be coming back. Currently, right now, Mr. Van Briesen has been serving as the interim intermediate principal. And in my view, and I believe even Mr. Noble's view, he can speak for himself, though, he's done a good job. I know you've received some communication from a few staff members, and I actually sent you an email recommending that I would offer the position to him to be hired in that role, and then open up the assistant principal position. But it's your choice. You can either place him in that position or advertise for an intermediate principal.
I think his performance and support from his employees speak for himself, so I agree. I think, can we make the motion tonight, or?
Yep, you can. You have
I would
that.
make the motion that we put Corey Van Briesen as the principal at the intermediate school and open up the vice principal position for hire.
Second?
A motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Steve?
He's an interim principal now. Would this become effective as of now? He'd become not the interim, but
It would become fully effective as the principal of July 1.
July 1 was when this would
He
take
still has
effect
to
then.
serve out his interim. but-
Okay, just wanted to check when it
Yeah.
would become official. Thank you.
I have no reason to doubt the glowing recommendations we've heard about Mr. Van Briesen's performance. I think a good best practice would be to post a position when there is an administrative, when we're to hire an administrative position. I think posting the position for a limited amount of time would give the possibility to identify some, future potential leadership interest in our district or externally as well. So whether it's part of this conversation today or elsewhere, I just wanted to mention that I feel like the best practice would be to typically post a position when it's for someone in the administration.
Okay, any further discussion? He has been serving in it since the beginning of the year, correct?
Correct.
He took over last year about this time, right?
He was doing that role part of the year, yeah.
Any further discussion? The motion is to appoint Corey Van Briesen, the principal at the intermediate school, and open up the assistant principal position. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.7, approve the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee compliance report.
So this is an annual report that needs to be approved. Mrs. Hagan held a meeting here the other evening, and it was positive, and with this, it's a state-required report that goes into MDE, so we did it last year. So we need to do it again. So the recommendation is approve the report.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Steve, second by Tom to approve the AIPAC report. Any discussion?
How many actual students do we have in the Native American? That's why we have to have this, or not why that, we have to have this report, because we do have,
Yeah,
Students of
it's
the-
over 20 when you're required to do this report.
okay.
I think is it 28 or 30? I can't remember.
Any further discussion? Does this committee meet so often, or?
They generally meet a couple times a year.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.8, approve request for bids for the installation of the middle school rooftop units and replacing the roof, so.
Yeah, I'll probably let Dave give you that one.
We've been approved by the state to try to finish up some of our ESSER dollars by replacing 2 rooftop units at the middle school that have kind of aged out, in the 2 newest additions, well, not newest additions, the south end additions. And in so doing, we can purchase the units themselves through the state contract, but we would need to bid out for installation, and at the same time, we'd like to do the roofing, as that's getting about 25 years old. So we're just asking for permission to go out and get bids as soon as the specs are ready.
Dave, this is bids for the installation of the units and the roof, or are we going for 2
They're
different?
2 separate bids.
Separate bids?
Yeah,
One will
it
be
won't
to
be
do
the
the roof,
same
and one will be
contract.
to do the installation of the units we bought.
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve going out for bids for the roof replacement and the installation of the air conditioning rooftop units.
By Steve,
Second.
second by Aaron. Approve the request to go up for bids. Any discussion?
Mr. Skog, is, these are the air conditioning units, right? My boss just asked me to clarify on that, the last time that.
They provide heat and air pump.
Heat and, okay.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, does the ESSER cover the rooftop and the units? Or
Everything but the roofing. The roofing does not qualify.
So it'll come out of the long-term maintenance? Or-
That will, yeah. That, you just approved that, so.
On the capital outlay?
Yes.
So we're covering it twice?
Well, no, just the roofing.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.9, discussion action on the baseball field improvement contribution.
So Mr. Turner came to the operations committee and talked about where they're at and what they've been doing as far as improvements at the baseball field, whether it's the new backstop that's there, as well as the need for padding that goes on the new concrete for the backstop, new netting, new fencing. And then they also, you have a sheet that talks about planned improvements and what they've already completed for improvements. If you've been out there, there's actually picnic tables and a handrail area. So they've spent in approximately $50,000 currently, and they've raised just about $130,000. So it was an update related to what they've accomplished and what they're doing. And then at the meeting, he actually requested $12,500 for support for the padding. The city's going to cover the other half of that for the backstop padding. And at the operations committee, they're recommending contributing $50,000 towards their overall plan. And Mr. Turner is here if you have questions. And I have the colored pretty picture if you want to look at it. You've seen it before, but.
Yes, in part of the discussion we had, I think was how much work that the Baseball Association is putting in to making improvements out there, how much they've accomplished already, and how much more they're working toward making this a very nice, functional field for not just the players, but for the fans to come in and watch it too. And although they were not necessarily asking for that amount of money, it was felt that it was for all the work they're doing and all the hard work they're putting into fundraising they're doing and stuff like this, and grant writing they are doing and will be doing, that we felt it would be a good gesture on the school board's part to show our support for what they're doing by giving them something more than just a little bit of token donation, make something more substantial that they can use to put toward getting more funding and more matching grants and things like that, and more donations to finish this project out. I think they have on the list, I think it was a couple $100,000 that they're working on. So this is not going to cover all of it, but it would make a good start for them to be able to leverage more funding and get more work done out there. So that's, I think, Adam, maybe you want to speak to that too.
No, I think we should have Jason explain the two big grants, or was it three, Jason? Two that you guys were looking at doing?
Yeah, we have submitted a grant request. I just got that submitted on Friday for the Twins Field for Kids grants. It's a $15,000 request. We also have a request into the JBS Hometown Strong program for some support on that, as well as Nobles Co-op Electric. We have two grants we've already collected. There was the Eastrup Family Foundation, which is the family that owns Sterling Pharmacies in town, and then also the Healthcare Foundation. Each were $15,000 grants that were matching grants. So those generated $30,000 in donations from community members to match those. Plus we've got another $6,900 in non-matching funds from community members. So yeah, we've raised $129,000 total. We have we've expended $49,000 of that, so that leaves about $80,000 remaining. And our estimates on the project are $204,000 right now. So it leaves us approximately $124,000 yet to raise to accomplish this. And I just want to thank the school board for the support that we've had when we started this approximately 3 years ago, in putting trust and faith in us to accomplish it, as well as the cooperation with the city. I think it's been wonderful. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a question for Mr. Turner. Is the intent for the remaining parts of the goal to do them as those dollars come in, or how do you see this going forward beyond the current plan?
Yeah, we've kind of got phases in mind of what we want to do, and most of it is going to be accomplished after the seasons. So we will complete parts of it as money allows. We really want to accomplish covering the stands as the first part, and then the unique viewing deck that we have in mind that we already have a sponsor for would be, those would be the two priorities.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Jason? This went to Operations Committee, right?
Yeah, I make a motion to give WABA a $50,000 contribution towards their baseball field objectives.
Second.
Motion by Adam, seconded by Tom to approve to contribute 50,000 to the baseball field improvements. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, at the operational, was it discussed then where this money would come from exactly? Is it just general fund dollars that would go towards that?
Potentially, we could use long-term facility maintenance depending on what the project is it goes to. Otherwise, it'll have to be general fund.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Start your planning some more, Jason. Okay, 5.10, approved service maintenance agreement with Peril Technologies.
The Operations Committee reviewed this. Parallel Technology comes out of the cities, and they actually service pretty much our security cameras, doors, and things that are now on car keyed versus, or fob versus the other method. It's a way for us to service all that as well as have regular updates. They provide all those updates with that. So Amy Ernst did present and talk about this at the Operations Committee. The total cost of the service agreement is $27,170. And again, that eliminates mileage and regular service for our system. Currently, right now, I don't remember. Amy told me how many cameras. We're just shy of 300.
291.
There we go. Adam remembered. Anyway, the recommendation of the Operations Committee was for approval.
Okay.
Move to approve service maintenance agreement with Parallel Technologies. Matt?
Motion by Matt to approve the agreement,
Second.
second by Aaron. Any further discussion? This is we have currently in place now.
We do not have an agreement in place now.
Okay. Any discussion?
And this is across all the buildings of the district, anything that,
Yep, every building.
every building.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 5.11, discussion action on commitment to community venue. Ice arena discussion.
So currently, right now, where this sits is there's no commitments for the ice arena at this time. I do know the city visited about it. They did not make a commitment as of yet. I did speak with Mr. Robinson, and they do at this point plan to take the lead on this, and they will work through that. At some point, somebody has to start to make a commitment. You guys talked about it at your work session, and based on where the recommendation I had, you were somewhere between 2 and 8 million. So I took the middle to some extent, and I'm recommending you commit 5 million for 5 years. You put a limit on it, and with that, then the project must be started by then. That allows for planning and everything like that. I believe probably where it's headed is it probably will be one sheet of ice facility with maybe some other things tied to it. but that way you've made the commitment. It could be more later on as the conversation goes on, but at this point, that's where I feel comfortable recommending to you to commit that 5 million, and you can utilize it till construction starts as kind of that fallback.
Okay. Discussion?
So I know the Fair Board was at City Council, so where are we getting with that? Because I guess they expressed interest in working with the association.
I don't have any knowledge on the Fair Board at this time. One of the stipulations I would tell you is no money goes into that old building. I truly believe that that's not where your money needs to go. It's a new facility or it's nothing.
But what if we have to tie it to that old building with their current lease?
That's a 99-year lease that the Hockey Association has with the Fair Board. Doesn't mean, again, I will tell you, and it could end up being that facility stays where it's at, it used as long as it can be used, and a new facility is constructed. And I suspect that they will not use the school property that was offered, but I would include that as an option for them.
Mr. Chairman, still with that list of unknowns, is the right step is still for us to make a dollar contribution commitment? A lot of open-ended things you just covered there in a moment. Or we're comfortable with a dollar amount being pushed forward and then come back to us with what, where and how and when?
Yeah, they would have to start to work on that, where, how, when, particularly if they're taking the lead. And again, this would be probably a city-owned facility, like 90+% of them are in the state.
Is the city only looking at putting in what we put in? Because that comment was made at City Council that
I don't believe that's going to happen. You aren't going to, I can tell you, you aren't going to build a new facility for $10 million or even 12.
It was my understanding that that was one city council member that said that, so.
I just feel the city's going to take the lead. I would like to see what their commitment is before I can move forward with a commitment. Not saying I'm against it. And until the fair thing is straightened out, I can't commit money to that tonight.
Didn't the city, they tabled it, didn't they, for a while?
I think it'll come up at their next meeting again. And maybe you just leave this item open till we cover number 12 and number 13. They're kind of all three go together. So maybe I would probably suggest we cover 12, and which also leads into 13. And then you come back and take action if you decide to, or continue the discussion.
Just one consideration on the community arena. I wonder if we could pledge 30% of total costs up to 5 million or something like that. Just to kind of address some of the concerns about, what if it's only a $6 million, one sheet of ice or something like that. We could consider pledging a percentage of the total cost.
I think we'll go back down to 511 for right now. 512. And 13 will come back to finish this discussion. 5.12, discussion action on high school facility remodel.
So I put a handout next to each of yours, and just so you're aware, these are planning purposes only, so it'll come back and look different when it's done. But the first one's labeled option 6. Option 6 is classrooms, and then addressing the food service area, dining, cafeteria area, administrative offices, student support systems with some storage. And then it's looking at putting a science lab in with facts classroom. So that's an option, and that's option 6. The second part of that, so you or the back page of that is the upper level. So it's 8 total classrooms, and then there's an upper commons with an open space below. Just so you know, it addresses 2 levels and connects the north wing with the new wing. Okay? Option 7, which is the third page, addresses making the addition as a science department. So one of the things you need to realize is the classrooms are larger. It addresses, again, the administrative support systems, the cafeteria piece of the puzzle, student dining, kitchen, and then it repurposes the old rooms that were in the science department. And because they're oversized, that would get remodeling and probably create at least 6, well, total of 7 classrooms. So that's what it would show is 7 classrooms that would switch with science. The upper level is the 4th page. And you can see on there, it still has the upper commons, open space below. Excuse me. And just kind of shows what that upper level would be like. So the next page actually addresses if you're going to do a high school base type project. It's strictly a base type project, does not mean science. It addresses building renovations, administrative space, student commons area, upgraded kitchen and custodial, new classrooms, 8 again. Let me see. Nothing towards the north wing. I gotta look at this, make sure I get the right ones. New storage, and then, of course, all the soil stuff. That's about $22.5 million. The blue column is the high school base with the north wing, IT, science, and facts. And really, it goes through that whole thing. The cost to that is $27,500,000. And that's leaving the science in its current location. Option 3 is high school science, and the new addition would become science along with IT, science, and facts. And that is just a little, well, it's 33 million plus. So with that, there's funding potential for this. So the fund balance of 17.5, unassigned of 4 million, food service a $500,000, LTFM bonding. So we can bond against future LTFM dollars, which 5 million is about half. So our annual LTFM, half of it would go to pay off this bond. And then that covers option 1. Option 2, you would need to utilize a bond referendum. And for option 3, the same. And I would say bond referendum and/or your other option is lease levy. So it allows you to proceed with a high school renovation addition. It's just a matter of the option we choose or you choose and how about going about funding it. So with that, and I will tell you the new classrooms to make a science department, the additional cost is the difference between option 2 and option 3, which is basically $5 million more to make them science. So with that then, the next sheet, the project options, I went through and did the funding that was available on the top, which basically is 17.5, and this is every option. 4 million out of general fund, $500,000 out of food service, 5 million out of LTFM, that's bonding against future dollars, 12.5 million from lease levy, and it's actually, I believe, a 22-year note that would have to be done. Or, yeah, I think I've got it here. I'll cover that in a second. 12.5 to 15 million on a bond referendum with either an August or November election. So with that, I kind of went through and did recommendations. I did not put it all on there. The total dollars you would have available are 25.5 million with no bonding or lease levy. Again, that's estimates. So option 1, just the high school projects, 27.5 million. Option 2 is the high school project along with a commitment for a community venue. And then I did mention the 5-year stipulation there. Option 3 is the high school project, 5 million commitment and 5 towards the middle school and/or west project. And that's 37.5. So the next page is actually, and I want you to be, the 37.5 million, the 32.5, the 27.5 are just references to give you a kind of a consistent number to work from. Each of them are $5 million apart. The 12.5 in the last column, that gold, and then the gray, the 12.5 is actually lease levy. And the reason I kept that the same was it allows you to look down below and see the tax impact that is created by using either a bond or lease levy. And so it's fairly consistent between the 12.5 million on residential homestead and commercial. Where it starts to differ is on the ag homestead and the ag non-homestead. And really, it's about 3 times more for the lease levy. So if you look at that, those numbers are based on per acre. Again, these are reference points to help you kind of look at that. The last page really refers to existing debt service plus the top end, 37.5 million. I'm not sure you're going to bond for 37.5 million. I would not recommend that, but it gives you to show you what happens with the existing debt and where it goes. So with that, these are ranges of tax impact. The COP would be structured over 22 years. The bond would be structured over 20 years. And LTFM is offset used as directly from the levy, so taxpayers will not see a corresponding change in the LTFM one.
Mr. Chairman, just a question, Mr. Landgard, on that, if you could explain more on the LTFM, and as far as, I'm not familiar with that, and what kind of impact it has going forward, are those dollars that are committed?
So long-term facility maintenance dollars are those that cover parking lots, roofs, potential some remodeling, or I shouldn't say remodeling, could cover part of a remodel. It's part of the dollars that we use to keep facilities up to speed.
Dollars that are coming from, what's the source of the dollars?
The dollars come from the state as part of our allocation.
And so we would be using those future state dollars.
Well, and again, that's local levy dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
Like on the land values, do we gotta double them, being the land values are double what's projected here?
Yeah, again, this was just reference points, so you have an idea of what it is. I can get closer to structuring if you decide what you really want to do and where you want to go.
Mr. Chairman, a question, Mr. Landgard, for the lease levy, we had talked about that a bit with some of the consultants at our last meeting over the potential adjustments or changes. Do they have any confidence going forward, the ability to turn that into a referendum or a voter-approved transition?
I can't.
Okay, nothing new on that?
No. Joe, Lori, or Aaron?
Well, yeah, Aaron.
Mr. Landgard, thanks for getting these additional options available to us, and also for the project options here. This is helpful. For the options 1, 2, and 3 that you mentioned on this page, for high school remodel and additions at 27.5 million, is that to go with option 1 or option 2, like the orange or the blue on the previous page?
That really would probably fall under option 1, to cover your basic. I was just trying to cover a basic project.
So if you're going with option 1, the base, it looks like the high school total would be 22.5 or just under.
Yeah.
So could we revise option 1, for instance, on this page here to say 22.5 instead of 27.5? Because it looks like you maybe added the community arena, ice arena along with that.
I think it's the engineering, isn't it? That's the architectural costs and the construction fees, and
That's included.
that's what makes it 27.
Yeah. Well, so the very last number in the orange column is $22,430,605.
So I did this sheet midweek last week. This sheet, ICS provided to me this morning. So
Okay.
that might be the inaccuracies, Aaron, that's happening here.
So, which is fine. I mean, it's better to overestimate than underestimate. So, but I feel like we can, as we consider option 1, 2, and 3 and how we would pay for each, we could substitute the 27.5 million for 22.5 million.
If you do just the basic.
if we would do
And
just
I
the
don't-
basic.
I don't have a diagram for sure on that basic model.
Okay.
So the 27.5 current model is option 2 then, right?
Yeah, that's what I,
Yes.
Okay.
and option 3 would, instead of being 37.5, would be 32.5 if you go with the basic model.
My question with ICS is like, how do their numbers keep fluctuating? We started at 28.2, we went up to 35, now we're at 33 for one. Like, it just seems like our numbers are really fluctuating, and why would that be?
Well, it comes from, these drawings have changed and adjusted some, and they probably have seen other bids to have a better idea of the bidding environment, is why they adjust. But these plans that are here, which again won't be the final, but they're a little closer, so they can take some of this, the square footage they might have figured in some of the others, is adjusted, is what happened. And until you get to a final project design, you won't 100% know the number.
Yeah, but in option 1, 2, and 3, you're including the 5 million for the hockey arena in each option.
I did on 2 and 3.
Well, it's even on 1. Community arena, $5 million, it goes to all 3 options.
Well, in that base it is, because that makes it your 27.5 ton.
Yeah, it's actually 22.4, option 1.
But if you look at his recommendation here, that's what he's talking.
27 and a half.
So what,
That's the middle high school, the blue one.
The blue one at 27.
yeah, so what I recommended was the blue one, along with a $5 million commitment, and then 5 million towards the middle school and west.
I was the one with the idea of making the new classroom wing a science wing, and I recognize that it's bigger classrooms and it is more expensive. I wanted to know how much more expensive, and it turns out that it's quite a bit more expensive. I don't know that we would necessarily need 8 classrooms that have lab components in them. You know, I think we talked about 6 being sufficient for, at least the foreseeable future. So we would potentially be able to trim down there a little bit. But I think that there is value. I mean, I understand if we veer towards one of the less expensive options, but I do think there's value in allowing science teachers to lead a lab in their own classroom and not having to, shuffle schedules with other teachers. It would give students an opportunity to get more hands-on learning opportunities. And I was thinking that the classrooms that would open up then in the existing science wing would lend themselves nicely to more community and technical education that, we've talked about as a driving force towards high school completion and having students be ready and equipped for technical training after high school in the trades. We do, of course, need to focus on our core subjects as well, but I think there's balance there, and there's potential for there to be more growth in that area, and I think there would be a lot of community support for additional training in the technical and trade areas. So I appreciate having sort of the plan to look at and the numbers to consider, but I think if we were serious about option 3 in green, perhaps we could trim a little bit off of the classroom addition, and thinking about possibly trimming the amount that it would cost to renovate the existing science spaces for new classrooms if they were to be geared more towards technical and trade learning.
So if you did option 3, John, your recommendation would be to either bond or lease levy 16.5 million to make that happen with everything else, correct?
Yeah. And again, bond, lease levy 16.5, now you're talking a longer lease than 20 years, so.
A lease levy of how much, 16? I thought the lease levy was capped at 14,000 something.
Well, it's 14 million, but again, to get higher number, you're gonna have to go a lot more years. So,
So if we go more years, you can go a higher lease levy?
and again, I would tell you as a board, you don't wanna do that.
I just don't think you want a lease levy, period, because I feel like if we do that, that's just our way of forcing the voters to come back later and say yes to bonding it, which I think is going to interrupt future projects for us, for them to come back and say no to. We can't be forcing people to say yes to something that, I would at least like to see us one time try and run a bond referendum and explain to these people that please do not force us to have to use this instead of just ram it down their throats the first time. I don't think that is fair to do that.
And if we did the 16.5 million, that would be the maximum bonding amount we would be considering with the full, as it is laid out now. Right. Which is less than we had talked about in some of our work session scenarios. And it could be less of a bond request if we allocate dollars, lesser dollars elsewhere, if we were to not do. I'd rather see us put a few more dollars towards an arena space and forego the west or middle school projects and use those dollars towards reducing our bond request to the voter. If we're looking at this from a larger perspective.
And I'm not going to argue with you, Matt, and this was before you were on, but yes and no, because there was also, I think Tom was on, there were 6 of us that was here that said middle school field was a priority before the hockey arena come along. And driving past there today, I was looking at it, and I have a hard time just pushing that to the side. If you go look at it, it's in top shape. Like I say, I'm not against the arena, but I don't want to push the middle school off to the side because it's well used. I think I'd have a hard time not fixing that up.
We could pass over the west investment.
I would pass that before the middle school. Just my opinion.
You would pass the
Just
middle
on
school and the
this
west?
too, and I brought it up at the last meeting, the district action plan, the first thing on there is additional turf, well, middle school improvements, not necessarily the turf field, but middle school improvements. So, right, Adam, it's been on there for a long time to do something to that, and again, I drive by it every day, and it needs something, those fields and that lighting, and some of that needs to be done.
Well, if it's going to be continued to be used for football and soccer, it's got high use. And like I say, just drive past there. Like you say, you drive past there every day, and I was driving past there tonight, and I'm like, bare dirt down the middle, and it's like, yeah, it probably couldn't use it right now.
So you're recommending turf then? Because last time you said something about a sand or different other options than turf.
As long as we're using a high-quality turf, I mean, I think I could live with it, but just driving past there, I was big on going back to grass, but driving past there, looking at it, if you're going to use it for soccer and football, I can't remember, what was the number, 500,000 for turf, didn't he say?
Yeah, the turf itself is right around 600,000, where the cost to turf becomes is digging it down and then putting in the base, because that's what your longevity comes. The turf itself is not a high cost, it's that base piece of the puzzle with drainage.
So I just think for using it, if you're gonna use it in the spring and fall, I mean, not the practice field, but the main field where it's soccer, football, no, I could see where that would be hard. All I gotta do is drive by there and it kinda tells the story.
So you would recommend turf? You recommend turf instead of grass?
To use it more frequently, yeah, you're gonna have to. I mean, if it was just gonna be a football field, I'd say no, but there's how many soccer nets out there? It ain't gonna just be a football field. To use it for multiple sports, I think it has to be turf, yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think a question like this is a good example of getting all of the community partners involved. They're going to be using it beyond just as a school facility and helping make the decision to have the best longevity and use out of an investment like this.
I mean, and I would be curious to pass over the West project and just put that to grass. And we did this. What was it to fix up some of those other two practice baseball fields? I mean, and could we, in the future, look at turning one of them into a softball field or not, or?
Yeah, you can. Right now, we utilize the city field for softball. There is, again, softball fields at the college that we would have the option of trying to work out a deal with them as well. So it is, the other part you got to remember is on the Centennial Park, they've put on the back burner that restroom. So the cost that you saw originally, I'm pretty sure the city would put the restroom over there. It's a better location for all the different activities. So that would be less of a cost for the district to put up a restroom. And restrooms aren't necessarily cheap.
Sure. I would tend to agree with the west part of it and stuff, as much as that has good potential for something. I don't think at this point that we should rush into doing so. I like the idea of just putting it into grass for now and just get it seeded down, let it have grass and let it be used for whatever people want to go out there and kick a ball around, whatever, fly kites or whatever it might be. I can support the $5 million for the ice arena, and I think we should move forward with that decision so that the city and others can start the process of trying to move forward with some type of project. I understand that Steve Robinson has been in touch with some people from the state who are involved with the Hockey Association, who have, maybe a little bit more experience in ice arena construction, those types of things. And it sounds like it doesn't have to be a $20-30 million facility unless you really want to put 2 sheets of ice and all that. I think if we went with something more basic, we might be in that low to mid-teens range for the arena and stuff like this. I don't think it's really up to us to determine where it should go, since it's going to be the cities. We're going to put money toward it, but they're going to be the ones doing the planning and construction, all that kind of thing. I think we leave it up to them and the Hockey Association, whatever, to work together to find out what the best location for that is. And if they can work it out with putting it on the fairgrounds and the fair board's okay with that, that we leave it up to them. If they want to find another location, let them decide that. We put the money in, then we can step back from that. We don't have to get involved with all the rest of the process necessarily. And I think I agree with Aaron and stuff. I think that the added cost for the science, moving the whole science department out of there is probably higher than what I would feel comfortable with. However, I do agree with, maybe doing, as we free up rooms in that area, we would move them into the fax area and then spread the fax out into another area and kind of, rearrange things. I don't think they're necessarily looking for a wet lab type of thing. I think they're looking for more of a dry lab type of classroom facility. So in doing it that way, we could probably use that room without too much modification, for them to be able to move in there. Plus they'd have the extra, classroom that they could use, plus we'd have one other classroom we could use for other purposes. It's not perfect and ideal, and at some point, I agree, we should really be looking at how we're going to address the vocational aspect in our education. I don't think we're at that point yet, so I think when the time comes, maybe it has to do with how we repurpose the other facilities we have, and just say, hey, is this big room better served for this VOTEC area or that VOTEC area? And maybe we start looking at saying, hey, maybe we can change that structure in those areas and remodel or revamp it to fit for that purpose, if that's the direction we go with our vocational program. So tonight, I'd like to see us, instead of keep delaying it, I'd like to see us move forward with something. And to start with, I'd like to move forward with a commitment for the hockey arena, with the idea that we would also look at funding for the middle school football field and potentially other ones. I think that would be the main one. Whether we redo all the fields out there, I don't know if, we have to, maybe that can be decided at a later time. But at least we know in the direction we're heading and what we're trying to get accomplished and stuff. We got a pretty decent idea right now what it's going to cost us. And I agree. I think I don't like the idea of forcing the landowners in the country to have to forego a 70% break on their taxes. I certainly wouldn't get any benefit from it personally, but I certainly would vote for it because I think if they can get it, I'm not going to stand in their way of them being able to receive that credit. I don't know if whichever way we do it, I don't know if it really makes people either are going to be for or against it and stuff. If we say, hey, if you don't do it, we're going to pass it. We're going to go ahead and do it anyway. I mean, if that's the case, we just be upfront about it. You're voting on it to get your credit. If you don't vote on it, we're going to do it. You don't get your credit. It's which way do you go first? So I'm okay with doing the bonding first, and if it doesn't work, then they're fully aware that we have to get this done. It's something we need to do, and we'd rather have you have the credit. But if you don't vote for it, we can't give it to you. So therefore, if you don't vote for it, we're going to have to go ahead and do this project because this is stuff that we just have to do. We need to move forward on this stuff. We can't keep, kicking it down the road like we've been doing. The longer we wait, the more it's going to cost us too. And I think it's to our advantage to get things going sooner than later. And I think, Adam, you said that the last work session of the meeting, we talked about it's going to be phased. So, we could start working on the parts that we can do now that meet the funding requirements we can work on, and then start working on the other parts of it once we go through the referendum process and see how that turns out. So we can start working on what we can, putting the others back a year or two as we need to, and hopefully we'll get the rest of the stuff straightened out in between. And with that all said, to start the ball rolling, I would make a motion that we commit the $5 million to the ice arena with the stipulation that it be a new facility to be determined location and stuff and function by the city and the hockey association, since they've got their commitment in it too. And then I don't know about setting a percentage and minimum type thing. I think if they're going to go ahead with it, if it's going to be a new facility, they're going to be putting as much or more into it to get that to happen. So I don't think we need to necessarily stipulate it be less than that. And then, like I say, I also, would want to move forward with the option to do the option one with the middle school improvements to at least to the field out, the football field out there. And if we feel it's appropriate, maybe put some more money into some of the other recreational fields out there too.
Is that a separate motion though for the ice arena, Steve?
I'm just making a motion for the ice arena to move that one forward. It seems like we're willing to go with something with the ice arena at $5 million is the recommendation. I just want to put that one behind us, then we can start concentrating on the bigger picture and not have that coming up over and over again. And I think we seem to be moving toward the agreement that we'll work with the the science department where it's at, and we will shuffle some classrooms around the group, the departments together with the new addition, and we'll put those together in phases because we can't do it all in 1 year anyway. So I think ultimately that's the direction we seem to be all heading to, and I want to get that ball moving. So I make the motion that we go with 5 million to the hockey with the stipulation that'd be a new building. And then we start moving toward the high school and the middle school improvements.
So the motion, Steve, is for the high school is what?
Nothing at this point.
Nothing at this point.
I'm doing these as a
Talking about
separate,
the fields?
to get that off the table, move that aside, and then we can start working on the,
This is basically 5.11. He's making the motion for.
yeah.
He's making the motion for 5.11.
Just on the ice arena right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Move that out of the way, and then we move on to the other.
okay.
I'll second the motion then for 5 million towards the ice arena community venue to the city with those stipulations.
Okay, motion made and seconded for the district to appropriate 5 million when the project starts, that would be, right?
Yep.
Which could be a while.
Year or two.
It's gonna be up to the city to move that.
Yep.
And they will have to decide where to put it and all, and so on.
Yep.
Just going back to, okay, motion made and seconded, okay. I just wanted to reflect a few comments about what we've done in the past for sports facilities. I mean, we did the gymnastics facility. I don't know what the cost was exactly, 3.5 or 4 million somewhere. The football field, that was a $7 million cost. The track was included in that. And we supported all these sports things in the past. I think to be fair, we should support the hockey. It isn't just hockey, it's ice arena for other things also, for kids skating and for that part of our hockey program and other for the community. I think 5 million is a reasonable number to put toward it. I think we should do it, but that's my opinion, so. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is my question I have. We're committing 5 million. There's nothing been discussed how we're going to fund all these projects yet. So if we do 5 million, 20-some million for the high school, how are we funding it? Are we going to have to do a bond, lease levy? We haven't answered all the questions yet to be committing money to a project without having the funding issue done first, I think.
I think the information that was handed out addressed the different funding sources, and one of them would be a bond or a lease levy.
A bond or a lease levy.
So Tom, where I'm kind of at right now with the math is if we commit $5 million to the ice arena, then we could still go with the orange option, option 1, for high school additions and improvements for $22.4 million without having to do a bond referendum or lease levy. Because we would have approximately $27 million of existing funds available.
All right.
So I think by voting to contribute $5 million to the ice arena kind of puts us in a position to consider this orange option and moving forward with that without having to utilize lease levy money or a bond referendum. If we want additional bigger packages for high school improvements, then we would have to consider lease levy money or a bond referendum. Is that adding up?
All right.
Okay.
Well, and I think one thing, I don't know if that helps, Tom, the 4 million, that is general fund that we have 12 million in, right? And we're gonna take 4, so there'll still be 8.5 million left in our total general fund. But we are gonna use all 17.5 million of our fund balance that is assigned, correct? Whether we choose package option 2 or 3. And then we gotta decide if we want to bond, I'm not even gonna talk lease levy, if we want to bond to the people for 11.5 million on option 2 or 16.5 on option 3. Just depends what you want to do with your high school.
Mr. Chairman, the topic on the table is the arena complex. I've been vocally supporting us in an $8 million contributor. I continue to think that that's where we should participate in this kind of project that has so many ripple down implications beyond our school district and the citizenry of the county. Especially if we looked at not doing the West project, that would give us an additional 2.3 to put towards this arena project. That would get us closer to an $8 million contribution. You look at the dollars presented in front of us during the work sessions, majority of the projects were $20 million. And that's why I looked at an $8 million contribution, is to try to make the facility, and then that wouldn't even be enough to meet that goal. And so I'm sticking to the $8 million suggestion, even though that's not the item on the table. And I just wanted to share my thoughts on where we should be from a supporter of this project.
You can raise that at a later point, can't you? The 5? We're saying we're going to start at 5.
An additional contribution?
Right. I'm just saying, we've got to start someplace, so if we're going to
Okay.
start, I'm just saying, I don't think you're going to get 8 tonight. I think if we're trying to get some commitment toward the project.
Right.
So I think we can raise it later if whoever's on the board at that time decides to, but I think you have to commit something if we're going to be involved in it.
Well, we can see what other costs come in too and stuff, and having some money available at a later date isn't bad in case some of the other costs and estimates should be different from what we have right now. It gives us a little bit of leeway or room to adjust to some extent, and if things do better than we thought, we always could say, hey, we have some money to put into whether it be the West School or the ice arena or other types of things. I just think I always want to send the message and stuff that we are supporting it, and this is what we have available at this point, that we feel comfortable committing to it, so that people who want to start the planning process can get started on something, get moving on stuff. And if it's possible for us to do something more as we move forward, as we find other costs are coming in and stuff, then that's great. But at this point, I think it's a good starting point just to get this moving off of dead center and let the city know that somebody is committing to this, and it kind of sends it back to them then to pick it up and go with it if that's what they want. I'm assuming they will, but if they shouldn't, then we've got $5 million coming back to us that we have for other options then too, but I don't think that'll happen. I think they'll step up and do what they need to do to keep the project moving forward. The scope of the project is what they'll have to determine. As we said before one time, once we know how much money they have, then they can figure out how to plan and get what they need to get for that amount of money. So I think something will happen. It just may not be the picture we were looking at initially, and maybe what would be considered the best thing for the community overall in the long run, but at least it gets us to moving forward.
Before I commit any dollars, I would really like to see what the project cost is going to be. And if the city's taking the lead, I would really like to know what they're going to put into this. I'm not against the project. I'm just not willing to commit tonight with unclear answers to some of this stuff. So I get a sense that 5 million is doable for most of you, but that's where I stand tonight. And maybe if Steve comes in with lower than what we've seen, then maybe Matt's offer of 8 is doable. That's why I really don't know what I'm willing to commit. I'm not walking away from it, but I'm not going to commit to 5 million tonight with not all answers.
We're really not, we're committing it, yet we're not, because the city hasn't committed nothing yet, so, they're going to have to put in 10 to make this thing even have a chance, so.
And I think if you looked at the work session, that's the number for sure they're looking at putting on the project, so.
I watched the whole discussion last night from city council on cable, and watched all and I think they're serious. I think if we say we're going to do something, it'll help them make a decision. It's not, I'm sure they want more than 5, but I'm saying we start there and we give it a shot. Let them take it from there. It's my opinion, but it's up to the board.
So if we're voting on this, we're voting to commit 5 million?
Right. I mean, potentially, the project has to go before they're gonna see any money. If they don't come up with their 10 or whatever it takes to make it work, we won't be putting in anything, so. We're just saying we're willing to put in 5 if they're willing to proceed.
You do have a motion.
We do have a motion on the floor and a second.
A second.
Or 5, assuming it goes forward. There's nothing spent yet until they adopt a plan and come up with where to put it and how much and a lot of questions. But I think we're at least committing to go with the program, the hockey and skating as a community. And like I said, we put in a lot of money in all the other sports. And I think we really should do this for the community and for the school district.
I think we're pretty much, the whole board is in consensus to donate, to contribute to the ice arena project. I think we're all saying, we're all in favor of it. What we're really arguing over is a dollar amount. So we have made our commitment. Can we just make a commitment we will be involved in a project without any dollar amount committed?
Well, we're committing 5 million tonight if it passes. Providing the city goes forward with it. It's gonna be, the ball's gonna be in their court. I mean, they're gonna have to take the lead and.
I think there's just too many unknowns of what and where and how it's gonna be done. If we just make the commitment, we're here to help. We haven't decided on a dollar amount?
No,
Or
we're deciding on a dollar amount to 5 million.
Well, can we leave it an open, just say we're gonna help commit to this project? Because we're seeing 5, we heard 8.
Well, we said we're gonna start at 5. I mean, I think that's a fair commitment.
Well, if we're making a motion, making a commitment of 5, that's pretty much done. You can't come back 3 years and amend this main motion 5 years down the road, say we're gonna throw another 3.
Well, you
Well, you
can.
could have a new motion.
Can do
could
that.
bring
You
it
can just
back.
make a new motion saying we'll put in an additional amount of money, but that's not what we're talking about right now. We're talking about 5.
Right.
Get the project started. And they, having an open commitment, so we're gonna do something, that doesn't help them unless we tell them how much or give them some idea what it's gonna be. If we're gonna, it's a far difference between 1 million and 5 million or even 10 million. So we have to give them an idea what they're working with so that they know what they can start planning for.
Okay.
So I think we need to make some kind of commitment, and I think 5 is the good point to be. And if there's sometime in the future, if there's more money needed and if the board feels it's appropriate, we can always give more, but at this point, I think $5 million is a good point for them to work with from us.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. And a second to commit $5 million for this project, providing it moves forward from the city. And the motion also stipulates, Steve, it has to be the new facility.
Yeah, it has to be a new facility. It won't be going to put any money into the old facility.
So the motion states a 5-year stipulation then, right? That's what the motion stated then?
A what?
Has to be started within 5 years?
No, there's no stipulation on when they started, just $5 million.
Wasn't that a request? For
A
5, do it
recommendation.
within the next 5 years?
Well, I think it'll be dead long before that if it doesn't move. I mean, yeah, it's gonna have, the city's gonna have to make a decision just shortly. When it'll start, that's a year or 2, but it won't be 5 years. If it is, it won't happen, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend the main motion by adding in the words a 5-year stipulation. At the end of 5 years, Nelson's project hasn't started, we will come back to the board and reconsider.
You mean it has to be started by that point? All right, well, I think that's pretty safe, but,
Yeah. I second that
Second the
amended motion.
okay, we'll vote. Okay, any discussion on well, there's no discussion on an amendment, so. we'll vote on the amended motion.
And
You
that's,
can vote on the amendment to the main motion
Amendment to the main motion.
of a 5-year
amendment to the main
stipulation
motion,
for
right,
the
right.
project to be started.
Right, okay. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So now the main motion reads, it has to be completed started within 5 years, and it's a $5 million commitment, providing it moves forward, with the city taking the lead up with this. Any discussion on the main amended motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Now we go back to
512.
512. The high school remodel. Where were we at before?
So it really comes down to the option. As you have heard, you can do option 1, not go to the voters. Option 2, it's a little more cost, and potentially you're going to have to ask for a referendum in that case. Total dollars at this point probably aren't figured, but it'd be in that $11-12 million range to do option 2. To do option 3, you'd be closer to that 16-17 million. And with that, then, I recommend doing option 2. You get a little more done, you get a little more accomplished. It kind of does some of the goals that you wanted to do overall. And I would tell you, I want to have a little faith in voters that they will support this. So I guess I'm not afraid to say, let's go to the voters and ask them for support. If you figure out, and if you look at the actual impact of a $12.5 million on a $200,000 home, that's $52.72 a year. They can skip a coffee once a week and they'd be okay.
$4 a month?
$4 a
Skip
month.
it, skip it once a month.
Yeah, skip it once a month. It's not a big number, folks, so just as an idea,
What is the average value of a home in Nobles County with the big increase in values last year?
I don't know that number. Originally, the last time we ran a bond referendum, it was I want to say it was 138,000, but I think 152 was probably closer.
If we don't do the west side, do we need to come for 11 and a half? Can you come for 9, 9 and a half? If you take the 2.3 out?
Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the attempts to change the dollar amounts a bit maybe, but the only thing that happens by not doing some of these needs is it's going to cost more when we have to do some additional things later. And I was prepared, and I still am prepared to do option 3 and to ask the voters to support $16.5 million bond. And I think that it's not, I put a lot more faith into our building administration and staff to tell us what works best for their classroom needs and designs. I think it's good for us to think that and I'm ready to support what they are going to have for the best teaching environment, whether it's a science wing that's added on or reworking of other classrooms. I'd much rather see us show support on what we're going to ask our constituents to vote for, and then let our staff direct the plans to construct a facility to educate the kids.
I guess it was a year ago we voted to leave the west as a green space for a few years. So here all of a sudden we're less than a year later and we already got plans for the west side. I kind of agree with Matt, let's take the 2.3 out of the out of the equation and leave it west as the green space.
Well, and that's why I'm asking, wonder what option now, like Matt, you said 16 and a half. Do you want to do the
Well,
west side?
No, that would
That's what I
be-
mean, if we take the 2.3 out, do we have to ask for 16 and a half or 11 and a half? Can we take that down by a couple million?
There's the potential. I have to get the numbers totally worked out.
And that's if everybody agrees not to do west. I would rather just plant it to grass for now.
If we went option 3 at 16.5, we take, say, 2.5 million out, just a ballpark figure, we're down to 14 million we're asking the voters for. Because we're putting a lot of money in the project ourselves.
All right.
You would think that would convince the voters that we are actually contributing what we have in fund balance to help the project go forward. My opinion.
Sure. I think if we're serious about bonding for the high school, I'd rather see option 3 and get it done right for a couple million more, you know, whatever that number is, if it's gonna be 16 million or 15 or 17, kind of where that's gonna fall, when we get a final plan, and we'll know a little bit more about that. But we have one chance to do the high school, I'm with Matt, one chance to do it. If we're gonna do it right, we might as well do it and get it all taken care of and have a science wing that we're proud of somewhere with the new classrooms, and so I would be in support with that, around that 16, 17 million.
Mr. Chairman, a question for Mr. Landgard. A motion tonight needs to have any dollars attached or just an option to provide direction?
You would be giving me direction to move forward for planning, and then I'm going to ask, do you want to do an August election, November election?
That question's separate from the motion.
You can include it in the motion if you want.
I got one more question for motions made, sorry, Matt.
That's all right.
So in this option 3, there was that improvements for the north wing, for redoing the windows that were replaced years ago with paneling. That is not in this option at all.
It is.
It's north
Am I
wing.
correct?
Yep.
It's there.
So if we
There.
use the long-term finance or long-term care, whatever you call that, are we going to delay redoing the
It's in.
north wing?
You could,
We're delaying that project then.
you could.
So here's my question or thought. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong or whatever. Wasn't the original plan to redo the north wing, wasn't that like $2 to $3 million? And I need your help. You're looking at me. Do you remember what that was for the redoing?
I don't recall, but
Can we use that 2.3 million to go towards that project? To redo the north wing?
One,
Those projects, I
it
think
was
what
under
you
2
mentioned in
million.
improving the north wing is included in the blue option and the green option.
Is it?
1.4 million.
Right in
Tom.
the middle.
1.3,
Replace existing metal panel and windows in the middle.
Is it?
Building renovation.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
1.341.
and it also addresses upgrades of the finishes and built-in, so it's really roughly 2.4 million.
I don't know if my glasses are dirty or just fine print.
It's really fine. I tried to blow it up, but I didn't do a very good job.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve option 3 as listed minus the west site improvements.
I'll second the motion.
okay, motion by Matt, seconded by Steve to approve option 3, less the west site
Correct.
costs of whatever that number was.
Roughly 34 million.
Right. So that would be, yeah, we're not, yeah, okay.
How many million, John, you said?
I think it
just-
was about 34, I believe.
I think it's 33.1.
It was a total,
30, maybe it's closer to 33.
33.1.
33, yeah.
So of those
0.1.
dollars, we could put in the total of,
33.2.
so a bonding number would have to be how much then? If we use everything we can, roughly?
14, no.
14.
14?
14, 15 million roughly.
So you go to the voters first with that number.
And that would include the $3 million for the middle school site improvements.
Right.
It's gotta be in the motion then.
It would
We-
not,
Can have another motion.
Option 3 includes the middle school site improvements.
Oh, it does,
The
yeah.
motion stated everything on option 3 minus west site improvement,
Okay.
all the way down to the bottom.
Right.
Everything in
So,
option 3
okay.
except west.
Any further discussion?
I just think it's important for the board to remember, I think you've done amazing work trying to navigate what are the needs, what are we looking forward, how do we fund some of this. I want to be careful that West property doesn't just get completely like, we're not doing that at all. Only because I think a couple things have been talked about, in some capacity, partner of the city on that property at some point in time, I think we're working. Restaurants and concession, that's cost saving. And talk about the dollars that have been spent on other sports. Currently our varsity softball, they play on a makeshift adult league, city-owned facility. So somewhere in the future, that needs to at least, and I just don't want it to feel like it's like a never thing, because then it likely will come back up. And I don't want the perception to feel like, well, we said we weren't doing that. So it needs to be more, we're not doing that now, but just to keep it on the table. I think, Mr. Turner has shown there's a lot of youth support for baseball and softball. There's partnerships that are helping improve those facilities. So that site does still potentially make sense to create kind of a softball complex, maybe baseball, or maybe we would invest more money into the current softball on the middle school property. So it's just not now, but I don't want it to feel like, because it will come up again, and I don't want that to cause frustration. I think that's just important to point out.
Yeah, and I-
My thought always was that we're saying, putting into grass now until we decide what we want to do with it sometime in the future, and here again, funding will be part of that.
And that was the point of getting funding in 2 to 3 years. Maybe we'll have it to do that project.
Well, if you're talking about sports, one sport I think we've forgotten about completely, which is near and dear to my heart, because I participated in it in high school, was cross-country. I don't necessarily say we need to build a whole new course, but it would really be nice if we could find some maintenance dollars somewhere to make the course we have safe. There's rotted out plywood covering holes and stuff that was put in there 4 or 5 years ago already, and nothing's been done with that course at all. So I understand these millions of dollars of programs and stuff, but we got some that don't cost that much and could certainly use a few dollars to help, dress up the little bit they have. It's just, like I say, especially when it becomes a safety issue. I don't know how they can even get by with using that without more kids being, kids have been injured, more kids being injured out there, so, keep that in mind too.
I don't believe we're putting that, still going to be a priority to do. It's just, it's not included right now, but as the bids come in on these projects, as you bid them out, we may find some dollars left over or some dollars that are not being used that we could put there.
Right, I
The
would,
bids may come in favorable. This is just an estimate, so.
Mr. Chair, I would encourage Mr. Landgard to make sure that the West softball and cross-country get put on the district action plan in the near future, just so it's there, so it's not forgotten. So it could be on the plan, the 5-year plan, the 4-year, 3-2, but it needs to be on the plan.
Yeah, I think in the long run stuff, once we further develop the intermediate school and learning center and community ed site, there'll be larger grass areas out there, and then there'll be space for cross-country. My concern is the safety of the course that is right now, and I don't think it would take a lot of dollars to have somebody go out there and do some touch-up filling holes and things like that to make it, safe. It's not a lot of spots, but there's just enough of them to be a concern. I think the course itself for the cross-country, it'll be probably the last thing we do, but, but it's coming up, I think, once we get grass, a larger grass area with more parking and stuff for them to use. I'm not really concerned about that. I'm just concerned about the safety of the course we have now, if we could put a couple bucks in there somewhere.
Okay, are we ready to, any further discussion on the motion?
I got a question, sitting here thinking, John, I'm gonna put you on the spot. We have committed $5 million to hockey arena,
Ice arena.
whatever. So, do we have to include the 5 million in the bonding right away? Or is that,
Not in the bond.
It's not listed, well, it's listed there, but
That wouldn't necessarily be a bonding.
so that's, well, it's in the whole
Yeah.
package here.
Yeah, it's
So we specify it comes out of the,
in,
signed balance?
it'd come out of the assigned.
So we're,
You're not specifying the dollars at this
where
point.
it's coming from?
It'll come out of the assigned.
The arena.
Huh?
The arena,
Yes.
the 17 and a half.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion?
I got a question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Lisa. So we're going to use general bonds, the first option, right?
Correct.
So if the referendum fails, step 2 is going to be lease levy? Or are we going to bring it back to the table and discuss it?
That comes back to you guys, because, for discussion.
I think you gotta sell to people this first time. Please don't give that option to us. Put it in their lap to not let us
I
have to
agree,
make
but-
that an option.
I don't want to say if it's going to fail, we're doing lease levy. I mean, I want the understanding that it's going to be a general bond referendum.
And I'm not saying we're gonna, I'm just saying, please don't give us that option to even talk about.
Well, if I do the numbers right, we're putting in $27 million of our own pocket. If
For a
I,
lot of projects, yeah.
for this project.
That's why I want to make sure
And we're asking
I want to
for,
make sure we're accurate on the dollars before.
so we're asking for like 14 to 15 million. So we're putting in way more than what we're asking for. We're not funding the whole project with a general bond.
Well, and I think, like, I'm on the same wavelength as you. I think that voting tonight for option 3 just really stresses the importance that we are all champions of a bond referendum. And I feel like that's what this vote would signal tonight. If we, the 7 of us, really work together to champion this plan, I think a referendum can pass, but it's going to take all of us to be really, supportive and, cheerleaders of this, advocating for what it's going to mean for our district.
Right.
At what point do we talk about when? I mean, after we have this vote, then is that a separate vote when, or is that going to come up at a discussion later once we kind of figure out exactly where we're at?
Well, again, if you look at the timeline that was handed out, an August election means we have to have a review and comment into the Department of Ed by mid-April, and would need to adopt a resolution by the end of May. So there's time, but it's not a lot of time.
Didn't we discuss just having it with the general election before? For saving,
That's your two options. I mean,
for saving us.
after the first of the year, you're going to probably see increased costs. So even by mid-July, you're going to have to have a review and comment into MDE, and then by August, mid-August, it's the last day to adopt a resolution. So it's tight timelines. So,
If not November, it was February, right?
February?
but I can move forward with consensus. I just can't wait real long on when you want to do the election, particularly if you want to do it in August.
We have a motion to
That
second.
doesn't
We
have to
should
be
vote on it.
decided right now, though, does it? And,
We can do
Can
it
we
in
vote on the,
March.
vote on the motion and then discuss that later?
okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion,
And this is for option 3.
option 3. We're excluding the west property improvements, so just for temporarily. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, where do we go? Back to,
So with 13, you've already address item 13, so you don't have to really, you can skip over that one. Move on to number 14.
Okay, discussion, action on National Insurance Services consulting agreement.
So maybe I've been doing a lot of talking. I'll let Dave talk about this one. I'll fill in the blanks.
We've had a discussion and a proposal from National Insurance Services to provide, they basically become our agent of record for all our benefits and our health insurance. Right now, a lot of that discussion and questions comes from in-house, and it's basically overwhelming our HR department. We have talked in the past about actually adding to our HR department. This would provide us with an outlet for employees to get their questions answered. They would help improve our benefit packages if we're looking at additional or different benefits. And they would do it for less than what it would cost us to hire another employee. After our meeting with this group, our recommendation would be to go with them as our agent of record and allow them to take on some of this mostly benefit type questions and responsibilities. Our health insurance, some in the past have provided some of this, bits and pieces. Currently, ours does not really have much of this assistance, and they work with Laverne, they work with some of the area schools around here, and they've been very pleased with their services. So we're recommending that we enter an agreement with NIS to provide these services.
Okay, any questions?
Do we have I'm sorry, did you have a cost on
The
that, Dave?
cost or?
It's a 1% of our health insurance premiums, which is going to be somewhere around 50,000.
I make a motion, we approve the agreement.
Motion by Steve,
Second.
second by Adam. And this is supposed to do what for us, Dave, exactly?
This assists our HR department with managing benefits. Health insurance questions come in daily from our employees with concerns about claims and, all sorts of different eligibility items. It takes a lot of the liability off of our HR department. That's all these people do, and so they've got the expertise and the ability to do it in a much more efficient manner. And then it allows our current employees to manage some of the other things that get pushed to the side.
You said neighboring districts are using it now?
There's quite a few people that use these types of services.
So this is a one-year contract then, or
This would be an annual,
be
Yeah.
1 year at a time? then?
1 year at a time. If we're not happy with it, we can always drop it.
So Dave, so any of our staff then could call this company, just bypass our actual HR people, and they could call this company and get their questions answered?
Right. So where Kelsey does a lot of this work now, takes up a lot of her time, this would free her up to do some of the other jobs that we're trying to get done.
Which allows our employees to become better consumers on their own without creating a liability on the district.
Okay, any discussion? We have a motion and a second.
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. On to reports. John?
I'm not going to cover much other than Dan Livedall was in regards to the watershed project. They are planning at this point, based on his conversation with the Operations Committee, bidding in May with potential of a contract starting late fall. So September, more than likely. It may end up getting kicked back a year. The second one I'm going to just cover really quickly is August election or November election.
November.
I got a November. All I need is a consensus. Yeah, I don't need a vote.
I think I'm nervous about this, but I think August would be better than November because I think we want to stay away from a general election. There's going to be more people getting out to the polls in November, meaning that we have to make sure that we are educating all those voters about what the referendum is. That's more work on the district's part. Thinking about all of the efforts and outreach that we would have to do to ensure that all those thousands of voters are going to understand the implications. Focusing on a smaller subset of voters in August, I think, is a more manageable task despite the shorter time frame. So there are certainly trade-offs, but I lean towards staying away from the general election.
I support August.
Yep, August is fine.
August.
And there would be increased costs for us because we'd run it separate, so we'd have to, all the costs of them.
It'd be our, yeah, well, that should be a primary election, but it'd still be a higher cost, so.
I think we would be saving some costs on like marketing and
But it's a one
And outreach.
location vote, right?
That I don't know for sure. If it's totally on our own, absolutely it is.
That's
If
a
it's
one
part
location
of
vote.
the
That's what the
primary election, then no. And I can't answer that on the date, so.
So we're consensus of August?
I,
August.
August.
I guess so.
August.
Okay.
okay, that's all I needed. Thank you. We've been here long enough, so it's time
Instructional-
to get to the end.
Instructional committee?
There was just one thing, we talked about Cable 3 and the funding for Cable 3, and there may be some changes coming to how that's funded. So we'll wait for more information on that piece.
Okay, operations?
Just a side note, with Dan Livedall's presentation talking about the timeline of things, we think that the affected land surrounding the project would be suitable for silage this growing season. So the plan is to continue with that and hope for a start date after the silage can be cut.
Okay, and the west project is on schedule? The demolition part?
Kind
There
of.
is no
That's-
schedule.
Dave, they sent some pictures out, looks like it's moving along
Yeah,
pretty good.
that's coming along.
It's moving along.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, any other reports? Hearing none, we'll adjourn the meeting.
All right.